Okay. In regards to timeshares, remember how we got here. We were talking about shared interest in properties. If you're not familiar with a timeshare, what I ask classes to do is I usually just say, picture one in your mind. And if you picture one in your mind, it helps you understand it. For example, the one I picture in my mind is Pepper Tree down at Atlantic Beach. Pepper Tree down at Atlantic Beach. I can't afford, I'm just a poor boy, I can't afford oceanfront property. But I get this letter from Pepper Tree that says, buy oceanfront property for a price that I can actually afford. And I look at it and I realize what they're doing is they're trying to sell me 1 week. So they're trying to sell me week 43. I made that up. But in week 43, probably sometime late summer or fall. Okay? Unit 12A. I can't afford oceanfront property, but I can afford 1 week of oceanfront property. So I get excited about this and I end up buying into a timeshare. So that's what I picture in my mind. I know that contemporarily it doesn't really work exactly like that. Today, most timeshares are based on the idea of exchange programs. Even though my interest is actually owned in 12A at Pepper Tree, I may never stay in 12A at Pepper Tree. I may end up exchanging that and staying somewhere in Hawaii for a week. Or I may stay in Pepper Tree but in a different unit. But my ownership has to be tied to something. So the first thing I want to do once we're talking about timeshare is define for you what a timeshare is. Okay, please write this down. The definition of a timeshare. Timeshare is ownership of property for 5 or more separate periods over a period of 5 or more separate years. 5 or more separate periods over 5 or more separate years. 5 or more separate periods over 5 or more separate years. If it will help you to think of it this way, if this were Sesame Street, timeshare would be brought to you by the number 5. Okay? You're going to see that pop up a lot in timeshare. Now, again, remember I suggested you picture one in your mind. 5 or more separate time periods. Well, 1 week a year for a period of 5 or more years, they are separate time periods, right? And it spans more than 5 years. That's what Pepper Tree is trying to sell me. 5 or more separate time periods, 5 or more separate years. It could be in perpetuity, and it could be limited to a certain number of years that is greater than 5. By doing that, you created an interest in real property in North Carolina. By creating a timeshare, you created an interest in real property. Now let's get to an important point right here. Why are we talking about timeshare in this class? You said, man, I came to a real estate class to learn about real estate. I didn't come to a class to learn about timeshare. In North Carolina, timeshare is real property. So here's the important point. Everyone who sells timeshare in North Carolina for compensation must have a what? Real estate license. Everyone who sells timeshare in North Carolina has to have a real estate license. That's why it's important. Okay? Yeah, go ahead, Josh.
So your example isn't in North Carolina, correct?
Pepper Tree is in North Carolina. It's at Atlantic Beach, yeah. And this applies even if you're selling properties outside of North Carolina, but you're selling them in North Carolina. Your actual sale is taking place in North Carolina. It would actually apply to that as well. Okay. All right, now, in a perfectly good lecture about timeshare, I'm going to go off course and I'm going to talk about something else. Are you ready? I will bring this back together later. But for right now, I want to ask you a question. Remember, I'm going off course for just a moment. You're getting your real estate license. That's what you're in this class for, okay? You getting your real estate license is completely dependent upon the Real Estate Commission. The Real Estate Commission basically wrote the syllabus for this class. The Real Estate Commission devised tests that you must pass to get your real estate license. Once you get your real estate license, it will be given to you by the Real Estate Commission. The Real Estate Commission is a regulatory organization whose purpose in life is to protect consumers. Okay? They determine whether you get a license or not. Because they are so important, let me ask you this question. Once you get your real estate license, do you think that the Real Estate Commission can ever fine, F-I-N-U, can the North Carolina Real Estate Commission ever fine licensees for acts you do under your license? Can you ever be fined by the Real Estate Commission? Sounds like the answer would be yes, but it is not. It is not. You can never be fined by the Real Estate Commission. You say, okay, well good, that takes a load off my back. I don't have to worry about them. Yeah, you do. Because here's what the Real Estate Commission can do to you. The Real Estate Commission can reprimand you. They can say you did a bad thing, don't do it again. The Real Estate Commission can censure you. I'm saying censure, C-E-N-S-U-R-E. It's a public castigation, and they're putting your name on the back of the bulletin so all your peers can see what you did wrong as well, okay? Reprimand or censure. But you know what? The Real Estate Commission can also suspend your license, and the Real Estate Commission can revoke your license, okay? Now, if you would like to remember that, if you will follow along with the handy dance steps that we have developed, you will never forget this. Are you ready, Ann?
Yes.
This is you and me. You follow along what I do. Ready?
Yes.
What can the commission do? They can reprimand. Do it. Do that. They can reprimand. They can censure. Do it. They can suspend your license, and they can revoke your license. Okay? Do it again, Ann. Reprimand, censor, suspend, revoke. That's fantastic. Get up here in front of the class and leave. Okay, I'll do it then. All of you, do it together. What can the commission do? Reprimand, censor, suspend, revoke. Blake, break, Brad. No, that's Brad. Blake, right? I didn't see you dancing. I want to see it this time. You and me, right here. Reprimand, censor, suspend, revoke. Faster. Reprimand, censor, suspend, revoke. Backwards. Revoke. Suspend. Can the Real Estate Commission ever fine you for acts that you do under your license? No, they cannot. That's going to be important here in just a couple of minutes. By the way, don't get too excited, because the court system can fine you. Violations of commission rules are automatically a violation of license law. So the courts can fine you, but the commission cannot fine you. Can the courts take your license? No, the courts didn't give you your license. They can't take your license. The commission can take your license, but they can't fine you. That's going to be important as we go forward. Why is that important right now? There is only one entity that we talk about in this class that can be fined by the Real Estate Commission. The only one we ever talk about in this class that can be fined by the commission is the developer of a, guess what? Timeshare. The developer of a timeshare can be fined $500 per wrongful act. Please write that down. The developer of a timeshare can be fined $500 per wrongful act. Now, let's talk about why all this exists, why this matters. Would it surprise you to know that historically, timeshares have had complaints? Have you ever complained about a timeshare? Do you know what some of the common complaints are about timeshares?
The fees.
The fees. Yeah, man, I paid you cash for this thing, but you keep sending me a bill. Yeah, ongoing maintenance fees and management fees and stuff like that. What else? How about that? High pressure sales tactics. You think they're getting complaints about that? You know, you always get these bait and switch things too. I'm always promised if I'll come down for a timeshare presentation, I will get a toaster or a Ferrari. Guess which one I always get? The toaster. I always get the toaster. Okay, they've had a history of complaints. And again, people complain enough, then it gets to the legislature. The legislature can only do one thing, they can pass laws. And in 1981, the Timeshare Act was passed. That's not important, it's not a history exam, okay? But what is important is, prior to that time, the Real Estate Commission had no control over timeshare. It wasn't even treated as if it was real property. But when the Timeshare Act was passed, and one of the things it said is that the definition of a timeshare is 5 or more separate time periods over 5 or more separate years. Sound familiar? Creates an interest in real property. Okay? Now, Real Estate Commission, since it's real property, you guys have oversight of timeshares. Well, here's the funny thing. Timeshare developers typically don't have a real estate license. Well, if they don't have a real estate license, how can we control timeshare developers? We can charge them $500 per wrongful act. Okay? So that's why all of this comes about. Now let me turn this into a test question so you would see what's up. This would actually be a hard test question. In fairness, this would be a difficult test question. Based on what you just heard, I'm going to ask you a litany of questions, and I want you to see if you can figure out what the answer is. What I have just suggested to you is that a developer can be fined how much per wrongful act? 500. One of the wrongful acts would be for a developer not to provide a public offering statement. It's required that a developer provide every buyer a public offering statement before they go under contract. Okay? So listen closely to this question. A developer fails on 3 separate occasions to provide the public offering statement to a purchaser. How much can the developer be fined by the Real Estate Commission? $1,500. 3 times $500, $1,500. You with me on that? It's okay, that was easy. A timeshare salesperson fails on 3 separate occasions to give the public offering statement to a buyer. How much can the developer be fined by the Real Estate Commission? $1,500. Why? Because the developer can be fined for the actions of their salespersons. Make sense? Yeah. Okay. So how about this? A timeshare salesperson fails on 3 separate occasions to provide the public offering statement to the purchaser. How much can the timeshare salesperson be fined by the Real Estate Commission? 0, because I don't care how pretty we write the question, a salesperson, a licensee, can never be fined under their real estate license by the commission, right? And then finally, a timeshare salesperson fails on 3 separate occasions to provide the public offering statement to a buyer of a timeshare. How can the salesperson be disciplined by the Real Estate Commission? Got it? Got it. Recommend, censure, suspend, revoke. Do you understand what I was going for in those questions? Not hard. You just need to be introduced to it. By the way, you remember that public offering statement that I mentioned to you? The public offering statement that the developer has to provide? In that public offering statement, the buyer has a right of rescission when buying a timeshare. Would anyone like to take a shot in the dark about how many days that the buyer has a right to rescind? 5. You must not have been listening when I said, this will be brought to you by the number 5. 5 or more separate time periods, 5 or more separate years, 5-day right of rescission, $500 fine. Okay? There's only one place that the number 10 comes up. I'll explain that to you, but rather than you memorize it, I would just like you to think logically about this. The only time you see the number 10 come up in regards to timeshare is the developer has to keep earnest money in the trust account for a minimum of 10 days. And the reason I say think logically about it is the buyer had how many days to rescind? 5. Well, what if they mailed their rescission from the West Coast and it takes it a few days to get here? Hey, a developer, don't take that money out of the trust account and put it in your pocket yet. Give it time for the mail to get here. So to me, it just makes sense that it's 10 days. But I'm telling you, if I'm you, I'd sell out on the number 5 when it comes to timeshare. Okay? Yes, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Could you spell censure?
C-E-N-S-U-R-E. Censure. And to be quite honest with you, I asked the commission one day, I said, what's the difference between a reprimand and a censure? And they said, if you go to the dictionary and look it up, in censure it says, see reprimand. So apparently they mean the exact same thing, but it's more fun if you have 4 of them to say it's more poetic. Okay. All right, we're through talking about timeshare, I believe. Yeah, I won't be through talking about timeshare. You can cut that off.